and then follow the pledge. Our Father God, thank you for this day, the beautiful day you've given us. We're thankful, Father, for all your blessings that you bestow upon us. Lord, I pray you be in our meeting this evening as we discuss the items that are important for the city of Rainsville. Lord, I pray for wisdom and guidance and knowledge and understanding as we listen to discussion and make decisions for our community and our great city. Lord, we're thankful for watching over and caring for us during the season of turbulence with tornadoes and bad weather, and you've blessed us once again. And Lord, we're thankful. Lord, I ask that you forgive us our shortcomings, help us to be better examples of you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Everybody, face the flag. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So used to softball, you said it was playing, and we all do the Lord's Prayer. I like our Father.
Kevin Bernard, you want to come on? Kevin's with TARCOG, and in the event that we apply for funding for the demolition project, we need to go ahead and get whatever's good for you. We need to go ahead and get the public hearing out of the way, because the federal funds. Kevin's got a little spiel here. I'll let you take it away, Kevin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Bernard. I'm an associate planner with TARCOG, top of Alabama Regional Council of Governments. And we're here today to conduct a public hearing for pre-application hearing for a grant in which the city of Rainsville is interested in getting. This grant is a community development block grant. It's with ADECA. That's the Alabama Department of Economic and Community Affairs. This grant, before I tell you more about this grant, I just have to read something here for you, which is, it's required for us to do so. All right, so you can move along.
Sure.
Okay. So since 1982, ADECA has administered the state's Community Development Block Grant, which is known as the CDBG program, with funding provided by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The program is available for all non-entitlement communities that meet applicable thresholds. ADECA has awarded more than $4 billion in CDBG money to fund more than 4,000 projects throughout the state. All projects must meet one of the national objectives of the program. One being projects must be 51% low and moderate income people, that it must be catering for them. Aid in prevention of clearance of slump and blight. And it must meet, or should meet an urgent need. So those are the three criteria. The types of funding that ADECA provides is competitive funds, community enhancement funds, planning funds, and economic development fund. The city of Rainsville is currently the recipient, and we're going through a planning process, comprehensive planning process. So you all were able to take part on, or take advantage of a planning fund, planning grant. And this particular grant is going to be for the eradication of slum and blight. The grant is for the project is going to cost about $300,000. There's a 25% match, would be $25,000, and there's a $250,000 possible grant that can be awarded. Now, the application has not gone in just yet. The application is due July 1st, 2016, and this hearing is just to solicit your input, answer any questions you may have, or record any concerns that you may have. So if the committee or the public has any questions or concerns, I'll probably be able to take them now, answer any concerns or questions you may have. There is also, I see your hand, there's also a sign-in sheet that's going around. It's required by ADECA that everyone's at public hearing to sign your name and your address. So as it comes around to you, that's why we're having that. Questions
So
about?
the application will be turned in, and then it has to go through an approval process?
Yes. once the city decides, after this hearing, the county, your city commissioners will have to decide on it. They will have to adopt it. And then they can, by then, we can proceed, they will give us a go-ahead to proceed with writing the application and
We don't
submitting the
have much
application.
time, do we?
No,
July
not at this point.
first, you said that's a little over a month.
Yes.
Sir, being this is a public hearing, were we required to put out any public notice prior to this of the hearing?
Yes, you will. It should have been advertised in the newspaper, local newspaper. I have an article here that was sent and a report of the newspaper. Would you like to see it?
Ma'am, do you have a property you want listed?
Are you talking to me?
Sure.
Do I have,
In this demolition project, do you have a property you want included in the project?
no.
Okay. Do you know of any that would want to be?
Well, I mean, I could probably ride around town and take
Yeah.
those addresses.
Well, we've had city workers doing some of that. And if you have any, or come across them, turn it into City Hall and get it included.
Once I answer the questions, it's right to you. Now, this grant is, we have, just to explain what the grant is going to do, we are going to remove slum and blighted houses and businesses. This is going to be done by the city on behalf of residents and business owners, but in no way are they going to exchange the title or deed or control the properties after. It's just to facilitate the ambience or the appeal or the look of the city by removing these structures. And it requires full participation of the individuals who own the property. So no property will be removed or demolished without the consent, the written consent of the business owner or the homeowner.
How would the price break down? What would the owner be required to pay in regard to getting their structure torn down if they approved or agreed to have it done?
Well, that is under the provision of the grant. It depends on the negotiation with the contractor on which you choose. It would be a licensed contractor by the state who would, you would have to negotiate, the city would have to negotiate that contract.
So it's not a percentage that's already been done or delegated by the grant, it's something that we would do?
Absolutely.
What we'd like to do is determine the number of structures, apply for as much money as we can get, and then the grant funds pick up 80 and the city pick up the 20%
Correct.
difference. So property owners, really wouldn't cost them anything. To me, that's the goal.
Can I interrupt again? But that's only structure. It's not for like leftover from the tornado, debris. It's not that, doesn't include that.
Well, there are, I believe, 13 businesses and I think 31 homes that have been
So it's only
identified.
Only structure.
Yes, only structures.
And you said that this was publicized for the community? I'm just a little concerned because I know, I've heard of a couple that have come back that are not real fond of this idea and it's their properties, which, I mean, that may be on some, but I'd at least like to give them the opportunity to ask you questions.
So exactly what, the publication of this hearing?
Correct.
Okay, yes, I believe I have a copy and I can get it to you before I leave here today, of the notice that was published in the newspapers and the name of the newspapers as well. I can provide you with that before I leave today. Any other questions or concerns? Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin. We've got Larry Campbell, his son Troy here with Aeronov. As we talked with some meetings back, we wanted to at least look at the idea of doing an insurance review. They have done a preliminary review of that and they've got some things to report back. So.
assessment of the city's insurance is basically what it is. And, the city has a good program with a good company, Amic, which does probably 95 or more percentages of the insurance for different municipalities and cities and towns of all sizes throughout the state of Alabama. As a little background, so all of this makes sense, the Amic is an insurance company. Say self-insurance. Now what they don't do is assess what you have. They just come by once a year and they say, give us what it is you want insured, and they come up with a rate, and they charge you accordingly. So if it's not accurate, that's not their responsibility, and while it might be a concern, it's not in the equation when you do have a problem. Perfect example was when the last tornado came through and hit the Civic Center, is that what you call it? The main building out here on the highway on 35, heading towards Fort Payne. And that building was significantly uninsured, and I correctly, because I may not get the history of all this right, but I think consideration was done to doing away with it, and finally, because it's important to the community, it was decided that you might do some type of bond issue to go in and pay what wasn't available on the insurance. Is that accurate?
I don't know about a bond issue.
No,
That-
no,
It was underinsured.
it was, well, I may be wrong on this, but I think I'm right. They explained to us, because I was on council when that happened, they
Yes.
explained to us that we had like a blanket coverage, and that building was like, let's say $6 million building. And if the amount of the damage to that building exceeded $3 million, then they would just destroy it and build it back, is what they said. But it come in at 2.2 or something like that. So that's the reason they built it back. Now, there's some upgrades in it that cost some more money, but that wasn't just to get it back to where it was at. But now, I don't know if there was an exact figure on that building, but the guy from Amic at that time told us that that was under like a blanket coverage that would take care of the different buildings that we had in town.
Well, that's good to find out. That's a piece of information that we weren't able to ascertain from the policies, and it sounds like you might be pretty familiar with that, at least a working knowledge of it. But the way a blanket works versus individual properties is you just sort of take everything and you put it in a bucket and you come up with a price. Now, if this building's worth $500,000 and this building's well, let's see, and we have it insured for $300,000, but we got $20 million in the bucket. Well, even though you don't have enough of this building, because you have all those coverages in one bucket, you can access other pieces of property and pull funds out of it to fix that building. So blanket is very advantageous, which was one of the questions we were going to ask, and we had 4 questions that we wanted to pursue. That was one of them. So that's good to know that blanket exists, because that works in your favor versus the insurance company, because you don't have to be insured value to get paid, is what it boils down to. As long as you got in that bucket enough to take care of everything. And so that blanket's good. But what we were asked to do and hired to do was to review the policy. And what we have learned through the years, we don't work for Amic, we have a working relationship with them, but what we work for is the client, and our concerns and our loyalty is, in this case, would be the city of Rainsville, but we do lots of municipalities, and we're not adversaries with them. We don't want to be adversaries with them, but we just want accuracy. That's all it's about, because a city council and the mayor, you're not in the insurance business. You're not supposed to understand and know all that stuff. And so something as vast as what we have on these policies, it's very easy for things to slip through the cracks or be missed or be underinsured. And that's what we found in great quantity, and that's what your brochure indicates. Talking off the top of my head, but it's all in the brochure. We had the police department and a couple of other main pieces of property that were listed.
From the Board of Education, Library, Police Station, and Tom Bevel Center, all the wrong addresses.
Now, that within itself is not major,
But-
because they were listed, but they were wrong addresses. And since you got a blanket, it becomes less of a major thing, because blanket moves values around if you had a problem. But by the same token, you do want everything to be listed properly. So, that's what that's all about, and we found, how many pieces of property was it that wasn't listed at all? If you have your brochure or your packets, that'll be a big help, we'll follow it. The first one, it says, property subject of insurance, that would be it's a printout. Everybody got that one?
Yes.
Okay. And when you go down that, the location one.
This one with the red, Eddie, with the red.
That just lists the location in the various buildings on it. And, give you an example, we'll just start with the first one there. Building one, which in this particular case is the pool building. And, it's 1,547 square feet, its construction is joist and masonry, the value that is on your policy is $106,090. We got with AMIC and asked them what rates that they use, in the four categories that your building falls in. Joist and masonry is one of them, non-combustible is another, frame, and then, masonry non-combustible. The rate they use on that particular construction is $100 a square foot. Well, using that, that would make that building come out to be $154,000 rather than $106,000. And under the co-insurance column, as best we can ascertain, they have, after the big tornado that went through here 4 or 5 years ago and almost closed them down because the losses were so devastating, they went to what's called 100% co-insurance. Well, co-insurance, you know, we always think of co meaning you participate, like co-insurance on your health insurance or things of that nature. Well, it means that with on your property casualty too, but it only activates if you're underinsured. As long as you're insured to value, you don't participate. But if you're not, they have a formula in their policy, as every insurance company everywhere. So it's not AMIC, it's all of them. And the reason they do that is they don't want, this area is a wonderful place to give an example, particularly what's happened in Fort Payne. You might buy one of B.I. Pruitt's buildings for $200,000, it might be worth $1 million. You know, it's because it was bought out, and he's gone, and the buildings are sitting around out there. So it gets to where I'd rather have this than nothing at all, and have the responsibility of paying the taxes, the maintenance, upkeep, and so forth. And so you go to your agent and you say, well, I really don't want to insure that building for $1 million because I'm not using it, don't know what I'm gonna do with it. I just got a great deal, pay $200,000 for it, so I'm gonna insure it for $200,000. Well, the insurance company says, whoa, wait a minute, you want us to pay you for it if it blows down, but you don't want to insure it to value. So we're not gonna pay you the full amount of this $200,000 if it goes away, because you didn't pay us the full worth of the property. And that's where co-insurance activates. If you're underinsured by their guidelines, then they will pay you the total amount of the loss. That's what it boils down to. Now, saying that 100% is the worst that you can have, so that means you must be insured to maximum value. 80% is the most liberal they have. That means you got 20% play. If building's worth $100,000, you got 80. You still gonna get 100% of your loss less your deductible. you got 50, then that's a different story. Then they go pull that formula out, and they're gonna say, well, instead of the 100,000 less than deductible, we go give you 75,000 less than deductible. So that's sort of how that works, and that's the reason that it's important to be as accurate as you can on your values. Now, while we found that value to be low, and we found several buildings like that, if you go down to 4, building 1, that's the library. And on that one, we've after stepping it off with using one of those things to help us with the calculations that you walk along the side, we got that building at about 11,000 square feet. And it is joisted masonry, and so we show that building on the policy to be worth $1,400,000 within a couple of thousand, or about where I am right now. Okay, good. Now, but you have it insured for $1,100,000, so there's another building that's underinsured, and that RVC at the top means replacement cost value. Now, throughout this thing, we found, I'm sorry, that's the one where you're overinsured, so this works in your favor. And we found that throughout this whole thing, where certain buildings are well underinsured, and some of them are just a little underinsured, but there were many that were overinsured in our estimate using Amex figures based on the square footage that we got. Yes, sir?
I got a quick question.
Yes.
About the library.
Okay.
That $1.4 million value.
Yes, sir.
Is that for the structure only? Does that include any contents such as the books?
No contents, just structure.
That's a great question, but the way that usually works out in each of these equations, the next situation under the building will also be a 4-1, and that's business personal property, which would be the libraries, the chairs, the counters, the books, or whatever you got in there, business personal property. So we got that at $116,000, and of course, we have no idea if that's accurate or not, so we didn't,
I wouldn't think that's even close.
yeah. Well, that's what your policy says, and that's the point. This is not to point a finger at anybody. This is not to say somebody didn't do their job. It's none of that. It's like we weren't hired to find the fox in the hen house. We were hired to see how well this matches up with the reality of what the city's needs are, and that's all our job is. And so we found a lot of things we feel like, based on using Amex rates, that a lot of buildings are underinsured quite a bit, and several buildings are overinsured quite a bit. And then, if you don't mind, and you stop me anywhere, anybody stop me anywhere that you want to ask this question. Number 7, which is the top of the second page, building 1. We have the waste treatment plant, and if you will notice under, you got the waste treatment plant there at $8,786,000, and then you got a set of lights underneath it at $316,000. I don't know if those poles and lights are worth $316,000 or not. We can do things on the building, but that's an area where you'd have to go get a lighting company to verify that number for you. But starting at building 3 on 7, if you will notice out there, it says TBD, to be determined. Now, unless, and we just don't know the value of the treatment plant, but unless every one of those buildings you see to the very end of 7 there, unless they're part of that 8,800,000, they're not on your policy of being insured. They're not. Well, now we had last year's policy, we haven't seen this year's, but none of these buildings are on that policy.
The question is, we want to ask Amic, under 7-1, it says 8,786,869. That's property in the open. It doesn't say structure or building, and there's several buildings out there. Walk those off, and we don't know if they're gonna consider that as property in the open, because all the rest of them are as building structures. So what I did is I walked off every single one of the buildings out there, did the best I could on the square footage, listed the construction and sort of got the rates out the side here and multiplied it out. Of course, I didn't use the full rate on some because some of them are canopies, they don't have walls, or they're open sided sheds, so I figured that's maybe about a quarter of the rate. So I sort of figured out that way, sort of would make more sense. And that's sort of how we work this out. But I will say, on the last one, building 16, you just built the building there outside next to that tank.
It's probably houses the pump, I would think, or the electrical works for that water pump to get the water up into the tower. And that's not made for there, that's mine, we're not talking about one little small block building. But it is important that we have some idea. Frankly, I don't know what a waste treatment plant costs. We went out there and looked at it, it's huge, it's vast, you know, got four different, main, tanks for taking sewage and purifying it, and
Matt, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
In item 7, all these replacement cost values, is that figure what you guys came up with, what you thought it would be to replace each of those structures?
there's 2 columns there, that I have both those columns on there.
Well, there's one cover here.
Okay. We have, here on our sheet, what's on the policy, and then we took what Amic gave us as the rate for various types, constructions, and we simply just multiplied it out.
Okay.
And that's how
We use their rate to sort of estimate what the replacement cost would be there.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, that's the best we could do. So some of our notes we had made is we were gonna ask, Andy to clarify whether or not we have 100% co-insurance. If we do, we were gonna ask them to move it to 80% and get the most level we could get. We were gonna ask them, was this blanketed, because the information we had did not mention the blanket. And if they didn't, we were gonna tell them we'd like to get it blanketed, but it appears it may already be, which is good. And then we were gonna get a clarification on location 7 to see if that, roughly speaking, 8 million included that whole facility out there, if it just included the purification plant, which is a pretty big, that's pretty expensive stuff, when you start building them. So we were gonna do that. And then we were gonna ask Andy to come in here and do a property evaluation, although we're pretty comfortable with what we're doing, but the advantage of that is if we can get them to do it, and they give us these numbers, if we have a loss, it's their numbers. So, you know, there's no battle about being underinsured or anything else. We're working off of what they say. But we think that there's, and there are many more instances throughout here. Let's see, what is that,
The Lions Club building,
Lions Club building, is that one side?
15,
Okay.
15, 12. I had the schedule of all the properties, and I walked them all around trying to figure out. That's why I figured some of the addresses were incorrect, because I couldn't find them. So I had to stop and ask the police department, how do I get here? So then I was out there, the little Lions Club building, or the wine shade building out there next to Field of Dreams.
That is owned by the actual Lions Club.
So it does not need to be on this policy.
I would not think so.
Okay.
There was a 100-year lease given to the Lions Club to
Well,
that
good.
grounds, and they used to host a rodeo there, an annual rodeo. Upon completion of the agribusiness center, the that Lions Club turned that lease back over to the city with the caveat that they kept that building.
Okay.
Well, if the city, if they turned it back over, what
The
they?
Lion Club still has a lease on the property
Lease.
that building sits on.
Okay,
And
that's
it's
the
a
key
100-year
word
lease.
right there, they have a lease. But if you rent or lease a piece of your property, unless you have in your contractual agreement that they will pick up the insurance, name you as additionally insured, and send you a copy showing a proof of insurance, then the building still belongs to you, because you're simply the lessor. You're just simply leasing it, just like you would a building downtown that you own, that you lease to somebody. So that's worth pursuing, is all I'm saying. If they're paying insurance, that's fine, but they need to name the town, city, as an additional insured and send you a copy of that policy showing that coverage is there. One thing you learn about insurance is handshakes are good until it's a problem, and you need something a little more substance to show. There was another building that we, I believe it was built in 18. That 18? Okay. 18-1, which is I believe it's a building that you must have an industrial park and you lease it to a business, called Solo Heavy Duty Manufacturing. Is that right? Owned by the town, the city.
Owned by the industrial development.
But that's just one of the many entities of the city, right?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so that building is 117,000 square feet, and it has a non-combustible exposure, which is basically a metal booker type building. And it's coming in here on the policy at $3 million, and if you just take that $50 and multiply that square footage out, you'll get more like 5,850,000 versus $3 million. That's pretty significantly underinsured, as it is.
And that's one of the ones that was damaged.
In the storm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this one too, the Coliseum.
And the Coliseum, which is 20.
It's hard to get the square footage of that circle, but I figured about 80,000 square feet.
You'd think with all that walking, he'd need to be a little slimmer, wouldn't you? Anyway, building one, which is the Coliseum, they got it at $4 million. We came up with a little closer to $6 million, and that's one of the lesser rates too. That's $73 per 100 square foot.
I think the value of that building when the tornado hit was about $6 million.
But see, going back to one of the preferences that I use in the beginning, it's not Amic's responsibility to determine this. And it's just not something that any of you have time for or the inclination for. And that's why we do this, because there's a need for it. Anytime you're in business, what you want, the most important thing is you want a product there's a need for. And this city or no city wants to spend more money. I've never seen a city yet that wanted to spend more money, particularly on insurance. And we're not even suggesting that you will. What we're saying is we got a bunch of buildings we think are overinsured, and we hope by adjusting these around that, we've come up with, but by the same token, if you don't have them listed on your policy, they're not insured at all, and we came up with some 20 or so buildings.
Right.
And
And even on the blank, you still have to have the location addresses.
So,
Which building is 25-1?
That's the Tom Bevel Center, 125 one?
it's Ag Center.
That's
Now that's a huge complex, and that's probably another really good example of, take 25-2, where they got all the stalls for the rodeo, and they got the restrooms, that parking. That building's got over 41,000 square, that park, the building actually has got 97,000 square feet building. And you got it insured, I'm on 25-1 now, you got it insured, at roughly speaking, 4,900,000. And that, even at half that rate, it came out to be 7,300,000. And then going back to the restrooms and the stalls and so forth, that's 41.6. And we just took, because it's open, it doesn't have walls, it's not necessarily finished, it's steel joist and so forth. We did a rate estimate, we only used $15 a hundred on that one. And even so, you're showing 243 on your policy, and we came up with over 600,000 at a $15 rate, and that's not the rate they're showing.
You got a discount because it's not completed all the way through.
So, that's the gist of what we have spent the last 3 months doing. It's,
We also have a list of all your automobiles
Oh, yeah.
with the departments and all the equipment. It has a department and list, and, you know, those can even be, we can give these to the city clerk, give all to electronically, she can look out and print them off, give them to department heads, and let them do their own inventory to make sure everything's listed on them, so we can make sure that we're covered adequately on them.
We're pretty sure we got the vehicle list reasonably accurate, but there's no way that we're gonna know on this contractor's list whether we got every piece, but we need to go in every building and start counting like beans. So this, it just stands to reason with me, since there are so many discrepancies on the property portion, that there's gonna be discrepancies on this contractor's equipment list too. And as Troy said, the best person to solve this is give this list to each department head and let them delete that accordingly. And that's not the only way you're gonna get that list ever close to accurate. Now also, we've designed this program so that we can just by computer send it to the city clerk, and everything we're all looking at here, she will have on a screen or a floppy disk. And she's not an insurance person either, and we don't want to give her busy work. We want to make it easy and simplify it. Plus, we want to all be on the same page. And so basically, she would not have to do anything except add and delete once we get this thing pretty refined. So if the police department got a new vehicle and they traded in one, we just take the old one off and add new one on, and it should perpetuate itself in a positive sense. So, other than these two lists, which are the short list, the contractor's equipment and the vehicles to a lesser degree, we physically went and looked at this vehicle, so we think we're pretty good there. But we didn't look at, you got a lot of stuff. You got a 97 Holland tractor, got a couple of those, you got a loader, you got forklifts, galore, generators, plenty. You got some more Kubota tractors, John Deere, so all that stuff needs public verification. Not just on do we have it, but is that a fair market value? Because the way an insurance company pays for that kind of stuff, where that building is replacement cost, if we've insured it accurately, that Kubota tractor or that car isn't. It's actual cash value based on its market value. So a 97 tractor, you don't get paid what you're gonna get paid for a 215 tractor. So it's important that those values be reflected, because if there aren't, we're paying for insurance we don't need to pay because they're not gonna pay us. Any questions?
And what are these other two lists, this one with a highlight?
Highlight are the ones that I could not find on the policy.
Okay,
That's just to help you figure out that's the whole policy there, and I've corrected the addresses and those things, and I've tried to make it easy to follow. But on one of those sheets, you didn't have the value for the building, and I couldn't print them all on one sheet, so I printed two.
okay. And so that's the same thing on the vehicle side as well?
Well, vehicle side, we don't have we think that one's pretty accurate. We just would like to have it verified by the department head. And we put, if you notice out there, we put what department these things were found in as much as we could, like the police department, the fire station, and to what extent we could. And a lot of these pickups and things belong to the water board and the garbage truck, they have several pieces in there, so.
So that's easily fixed, we just know which department the vehicles get signed to, I can make sure I split those out for department.
Well, we try to do everything we can, as judiciously as we can, and certainly, we do it with a sense of trying to be accurate, but when you go down, when you come in here from outside, so to speak, and you go down to the water board, and you talk to the foreman down there, or whoever's in charge, you know, first of all, they don't wanna give you a lot of time because they're busy. And they certainly don't wanna give you a lot of time for this kind of stuff, because it's a little bit of an aggravation to them. They got a work schedule that day and so forth. So it's better, and they certainly aren't gonna go through a piece of equipment with us, that's just off the chart, that's not gonna happen. So, we think these areas are certainly reasonably accurate, but they're not what our goal is, and that's to be almost completely accurate. So that's why we say let your department heads look over those two lists. And lead accordingly, because we don't want to send all this to the city clerk and they start making all these adjustments. That's not going to be good for anybody. We want to send it where it's pretty reflective of where we really are.
Anybody got any questions? Any more questions?
Anybody out here got any questions about anything that I've said? You just didn't know your city had so much equipment, did you? Takes a lot to keep a city pretty. Is there anything else, sir? Mayor?
You guys think pursuing a relationship with Mr. Campbell and his son, Aaron Hobb, is a good move, good direction to go in?
Let me ask this, you referenced that you guys had done the preliminary walkthrough and assessing the buildings, and then you had said something that at that point you would contact AMIC, and they would come out and do their own assessments to see whether their numbers.
I may have misled you. What I said is we would ask them to, it doesn't mean that we would. Because they may take the position that they don't want to do it. They don't want to be responsible for a sign back. They may say, well, that's what your job is. But sometimes we still ask them, because if they do it, it's at no charge. And if they do it, then if we have a problem, it's not our figure, it's their figure. So whether they'll do it or not, I can't say, but I can say we'll ask them. And we have a good relationship with them. They're right there from the government. So that's the main thing. And what you don't have here, in no city does, you don't have your guy in the fight if there's a fight. If there's a claim to be settled. And ultimately, while they're your friend, and they're a good company, and they're a reputable company, and all of that, they're still an insurance company at the end of the day. And an agent's responsibility is to be a go-between for you, and try to get this stuff as accurate as possible, so when we have a problem, we're not gonna have a dispute over what it's worth, or what's fair market value. And they did change a lot of things after that last tornado that started in Tuscaloosa and went all the way to Fort Payne to Georgia, because they ran it pretty loose back then, and they paid it off, but they changed a lot of their forms and verbiage to where it didn't favor the municipalities anymore. Also, they have in their policy a section where they allow you so much money for something unlisted. Well, that's good, except it's only $50,000. We've identified 20 buildings, and not even on the policy, that hardly would cover that. And even with a blanket, it wouldn't cover it because they're not listed. So that's what we bring to the table, and our experience is we don't really cost you any more because we're able to negotiate with them a little better. So ultimately, whatever our commission might be, over time, you won't
city have, an equipment or property numbering system or scheme in place?
Probably not that we could
I don't think
ascertain.
we do either.
Not that we could
So
ascertain.
we don't know what we don't have.
No, and even what I'm suggesting, speaking to what you said, is while it'll work, it's not quite as easy as what you're talking about.
I used to do that. I know.
Okay, yeah, that would be better, for sure. But, you know, when you really get right down to it, if you talk about a big manufacturing plant, that matters. But when you're talking about 2 pages of cars, that's not gonna turn over much anyway. This, what we're suggesting here will work. We don't like to get into too much cumbersome bookkeeping, that's just more work for the clerk.
Well, the only reason I raised the question, you were talking about unknown items,
Right.
$50,000, could well be.
All manufacturing plants do what you talk about. Anything else, man?
What's, yeah, I want to know everybody's thoughts on, looking at, a contract with Aeronov and possibly hiring them to be our agent, be our negotiator and our go-between with Amic. Is that something you guys are open to?
I think it warrants a discussion, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'd like to see, your contract that you're proposing that we sign.
we don't really have a contract. We're licensed agents in the state of Alabama, and this is what we do. I've been doing it for 35 years. It's just, all agents, whether it's the city or personal building, however, your homeowners, there's no real contract as such. We simply would act as your agent on your behalf for anything that happens, good or bad, with insurance.
I would like to know what the cost of your services would be for the city.
Okay, I can tell you that it's, generally, this is not my number, this is Amic's number, about 8% of whatever the premiums are. I think that's another rate.
Is that rate negotiable?
Everything's negotiable.
Well, I don't know what we're talking about dollar amounts, but
Yeah.
I do know that when the mayor brought this to us at the beginning, I was in favor of it because I was willing to do it for a year, as that's what he suggested we do, if I remember correctly. We try it for a year and see how we are. There's nothing wrong with being accurate in our, matter of fact, it's good practice to be accurate in your assessments of what you have, how much it's worth, how much it's insured for. My personal opinion, I think it would be good money spent, especially getting everything in order. But again, I don't know what that amount is, because I don't know what our yearly premiums would be in regard to Amic. If I could have a ballpark figure, I think that would help me a little bit more.
Well, what I would suggest is that you don't make a decision tonight. We're already been paid to do this. We haven't been paid, but we contractually been paid to do this evaluation. So this other thing is just a continuing thing where we don't have any more of these problems in the future. And you know pretty well what you're getting from Amic covers what you got exposed, and that's just simply a fiduciary responsibility for the mayor and the city council because of other people. And, but my thoughts is you probably shouldn't make that decision that quickly. You should discuss it, you know, amongst yourselves, pros and cons as you view them. And if you like the idea of you'll try this for a year, and you're not obligated to stay with any insurance agent ever on anything. We're not gonna have a contract with you saying you gotta do this and you gotta do that. We're simply gonna be your insurance agent. And when you get tired of us, you just say, we don't wanna do this anymore. It's that simple.
You said you were contractually paid to do this assessment?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
This assessment?
Yes.
With who?
We have a contract?
We had a fee to do this. That was it was even in the newspaper, it was printed. But of course, it wouldn't be any fee in the future because we'd be on commission. And that was to do this assessment.
I was under the assumption that this was free, and I actually thought that was pretty impressive that you guys would do that much work for free, because we did not, I wasn't aware of a contract.
We have not been paid.
Yeah,
This has been 100% just work trying to gain
meeting to order. Graham?
Present.
Holt? Here. Ledbetter?
Here.
Freeman?
Here.
And Lingerfeld.
Here.
Looked over the minutes from the past meeting.
I make a motion that we accept the presents as presented from the clerk and dispense with the reading thereof.
Motion, you got a second on that?
I second that.
Motion by Graham to accept the minutes as presented, second from Ledbetter. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Got a couple of folks from the public on the agenda. Miss Sandra Pittman.
Yes. Good evening, City Council members and Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to be here. My name is Sonia Pittman. Take just a minute to tell you something about myself. I've lived here in Rainsville 14 years, but I'm actually a fourth generation person here, resident here in Rainsville. My great grandparents on both sides of my family were born, raised their families here, and died and are buried here as my grandparents on both sides and my parents. So I'm here and I'll be buried here too one day. But that's just to let you know why I'm here. I'm here as a concerned citizen. I have witnessed some things this year that I'm starting reading things in the newspaper that I've really been concerned about. And I've made a few notes here. I don't write speeches, but I've made a few notes that I'd like to bring up specifically to specific members of the council here. I think one of the things I'm the most concerned about is that there seems to be continual disagreement between the council as a whole and our mayor. And I have read and reread multiple newspaper articles in different newspapers of statements that have been made, all of them in quotations, and I haven't seen any retractions printed, so I'm assuming they're all accurate, unless you tell me something different here tonight. I'm concerned about the budget. Specifically, I'm talking right now about this $1.5 million bond loan. Now, I realize that each of you has expertise in different areas, or you wouldn't be elected officials. You know, the citizens have voted you in, that they have confidence in you. And I think probably the one with the most expertise in fiscal responsibilities and finances would be our mayor. And I'm looking at this loan here, specifically this $1.5 million bond loan, that we must pay interest only on until the year 2023. That means we're paying $50,000 a year interest, and the loan is stated that the interest only can be paid. At the end of 7 years, we will have paid $350,000 in interest and still owe the original $1.5 million. I'm interested in why specifically, since we have been told that we don't need the money, we have a little bit of overage and don't need all this money right now, why you would go against the mayor's recommendation specifically.
Can I address that one for you?
Sure, I'd be glad
Okay.
to.
Well, let me tell you the premise behind this to begin with.
Okay.
One, we're on the hook to fund some projects. The Shavy's Bridge project
Right.
and the Boozer Bridge project. We're gonna have, it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about $600,000 the city's gonna have for its matching portion and engineering costs associated with those projects. We know that that money's gonna be needed. At the time we took the bond out, the interest rates were the absolute lowest. So we was able to lock that money in at the lowest possible rate. Now, here's another thing that went along with that. You may be aware that the city was awarded a $830,000 grant associated with the sewer project.
Right.
Originally, we were denied that grant. We were told that as a city, we had our finances in such good shape that we did not need federal assistance. And that is a positive thing to hear, but it's not a positive thing to hear. So what we as a council decided to do was to fast track that bond issue and lock in that money for the bridge project. So we don't have to worry about that. We did the $1.5 million loan, or the bond issue. We worked with Raymond James to set this up on a 15-year payment schedule.
Right.
So it's set up to be paid off in 15 years. Now, we coincided that principal delay to a point in time to when we had another bond issue expire or retire itself. And here's the thing. We would have been paying that interest during that period regardless. The way we have it set up is paying more of the principal on the last 8 years and the interest only, and the interest portion, which we'd be paying anyways during the first 7 years. The difference between paying that and paying a portion of the principal yearly is about a $50,000 differential over the term of the loan. So that's the true cost of structuring it this way. But it allowed the city some flexibility during those first 7 years, where there's no constraints on the budget. And that's actually in the budget right now. Now, what happened is once we did that loan, or that bond project, or bond issue, we then put that on our financial sheets and we resubmitted our application to the USDA department. And then they came back and said, okay, your revenue to debt ratio is a little slight altered here. We're going to award you $830,000. So essentially by doing that bond issue when we did, allowed us to secure the funding for the bridges. Also, it got us an $830,000 grant, which is federal tax money. I know some people say they don't like federal handouts, but here's what federal tax money is. It's our money. It's money that we send to Washington, D.C. And here's what, as a council member, I want for the city of Rainsville. I want our fair share of tax money back. And so what you have to do is you have to do a balancing act. You have to make sure that the city gets back its fair share of money from Washington in the form of federal grants and assistance. You have to have a certain level of debt. Being debt-free from a city is a wonderful thing, but you're never going to get your fair share of money back from the federal government. So what we've done was able to secure $830,000 for the leachate project. Now, since then, we've used that $1.5 million, what's left of it, to go ahead and pay off on another project that we got going at the wastewater treatment plant. We have some funding coming in the long run, permanent funding, that will replenish those funds. So essentially, it allowed us to get $830,000 in federal grant money, and that money is going to be turned around and directly invested into the city.
Okay, I understand all that, but I'd like to hear our mayor's view on the advice that he was offering and the direction he thought should go.
Well, of course, we're getting way off in the weeds here about a lot of the details, but I'll tell you the trick that got the offer changed from USDA to Rainsville from 100% loan to 80% loan or 70% loan and 30% grant. The underwriter, and I talked to it with USDA, was using our general fund subsidy to the sewer plant. The way we work with our finances, we operate sewer and sanitation as proprietary funds. We leverage the sewer off of our sanitation operations and off the general fund. The way the underwriter was taking that subsidy from the general fund was using that as a source of income in the proprietary fund, which is the sewer. That's not a source of income, that's a way to offset the balance sheet. It's a significant subsidy, so when they were viewing that as income, they looked at our sewer system and said, well, you got plenty of income to operate and to take on that debt. The grant portion is a need-based thing. You know, I guess philosophically, I just disagree with the fact that, you know, the city, we need to be in a month-to-month situation, and we need to position ourselves almost in a welfare state as a municipality to get more assistance. I'm all for a grant fund, but the trick with USDA to getting the pure loan, 100% loan converted to a loan grant program was explaining to the underwriter that the general fund subsidy to the sewer plant was just that. It's just a subsidy. It's not a source of income. It's not from fees or services. That's
The underwriter, and that's what, they looked at our city as a whole. So they looked at all the departments. And it's one of these, it's gonna be a little bit of everything. That bond issue most definitely helped us get an $830,000 grant.
Okay, all this interest money, this $350,000 in interest money, over 7 years period of time, how is that gonna affect the citizens of Rainsville as far as our taxes?
It would have been paid on the bond issue whether we was paying the principal or not. It's set up on a 15-year structure to be paid off in 15 years. So the interest is set up equally on all 15 years. It's just that the principal starts being paid down in years 8. So the interest is a set amount over 15 years. The principal is a set amount over 8 years. It's not an interest-only loan, so to speak. It's structured to where the payments are skewed more on the back end than the front end. So we're not paying much additional interest. The $300,000 would have been paid whether we was paying principal or not.
350,000, okay. So basically, what I'm hearing here is that the city council as a whole wants to borrow this money, or have borrowed this money. Is this the same loan where that you collectively decided that you would sue the mayor if he did not sign off on it? Is this that loan? Are we talking about the same money?
I'll answer that one.
Okay.
The way the administration is set up is the council sets the policies and the procedures by laws of ordinances. The mayor is to enforce those, and he does the day-to-day. There have been numerous things through this administration where the council has voted, which becomes law, which becomes an obligation. It's not an option, it's an obligation for the mayor to enforce from that point. We had gotten so far into the bond issue that it would be a problem if the mayor had not signed off on it. The city council did not personally threaten the mayor by no means. But there were people that went to go see the mayor to discuss these issues of bonds. They were left out in the foyer for 2 to 4 hours waiting to talk to him about these bonds. We tried to reach out.
Private citizens.
No, I'm talking about the people that were doing the actual bonds.
Bond
The ones
attorney.
that-
The bond
Correct.
attorney, okay.
bond attorneys
Okay.
from Birmingham.
And at that
Put
point,
pressure.
when we've already voted on something, it is not one person's choice to change everything that we have voted on. That's not how this administration works. That's not how the law works.
So maybe there need to be some resolutions or some changes made, because I can't see how it's progressive or helpful at all for the city council to be pitted against the mayor on decisions like this. I can't see how that's gonna help in a situation. And all the things, other things that surround it, it just makes the whole town look bad, and in the media. And the media's not always there, and I
I
realize
agree with
that.
you on that. And what we have here, we have a 6-member council. Okay, the majority rules with the 6 members, and it's all 6 of us are one vote. The day-to-day actions are ran by the mayor. He runs the city day-to-day. So whatever the vote of this council sets the policy, and it's how all the money is spent through the city.
So it doesn't matter what it is, or the status of the importance of it, the level of that.
No,
So that doesn't make any difference. So if you guys all voted that everybody should go jump off the bridge and the mayor didn't want to, he would have to go anyway.
If
Jump
4
off
out of the
bridge.
6 did, yeah.
He would have to.
If 4 out of the 6 said, let's jump, we'd have to jump.
Actually, we're charged with finances and city property. That's our goal. That's what we were charged with by law.
Okay.
So that's what we try to do.
So, so you're all in disagreement with the mayor's
People
decision
have
on that?
disagreements every day. That's why you have a majority rule, a majority vote.
Exactly, right. And I think a lot of these things need to come out. We got a lot of questions that need to be answered. Of things going on and quotes in newspapers that are just really disturbing to me. I'm gonna leave the budget thing for now. I realize that he, signed under duress, I guess, signed off on this. I'd like to go back to, if I might for a minute, the meeting, the state of the city meeting, and the town council, the town hall meeting afterward that followed, and the fact that none of you were there, and I realize everyone has a reason. I have given reasons for not being there, but, there's a few things that, Ms. Ledbetter said here. For instance, she said this was not a true state of the city address, and I'd like to know why you don't think it is, and what it would take for you to think it was a true state of the city address.
Well, let me explain how the state of the city started. It started in our first year. We had a very good outcome. It was very positive for the city. A lot of people came. It was a good direction. Then slowly, as the years went by, reports that were given were not accurate. There were inaccuracies that were reported to the public.
What reports? Who was reporting this?
The mayor.
He was reporting inaccuracies?
Yes. So I have a hard time, let me think of my words correctly here. When Times Journal called me that morning to see where I was, which I don't know if you've seen the email between all of us and Times Journal where we let Times Journal know that we weren't gonna be there beforehand, and had said, any questions, they need to come to the workshop, we will gladly get numbers, we'll address it. But when Times Journal had called me